Yes, just 1 second. Let me just hit forward.
All right, Chief Kennenberg, you're going to come tell us about fire station number 3.
Yes, I am. Yes. Good evening. Wait a minute. There we go. Good evening, council. We're here to give you an update on where the Station 3 project is currently. Back in November, of course, council gave us the authority to work with Samet, ADW, their architectural partner, on Station 3's design. We allocated money to do geotechnical work and do schematic design, which is the basic structure and components of what we plan to build in the fire station. In our initial request for proposals, we laid out roughly a 10,000 square foot fire station with a 2,000 square foot community room as an add alternate. As we talked through the project doesn't make sense without the community room being an initial part of the build. Nothing is in this for the community other than better fire protection without the community room. It gives them a place to gather. It gives them a place to meet. It gives them somewhere that they can say is their own without having to come all the way over to town hall. It's what we heard when we went to the Levine Center for our public meeting with our would-be neighbors, that they wanted something close. We tried to plan it at a church right near the facility, and there is no meeting space available. Everything over there is busy. So when we kicked off with Samet, we sat down and discussed the project in total, the fire station and the community room. The numbers you're going to see are going to appear quite a bit higher than the numbers we were talking about, because those numbers were just the fire station. But again, without the community room, this does not make sense. So what have we done since then? Well, we sat down and met. Let me introduce the folks that are here from Samet. These are the keys. Chris Knight is the area vice president. Travis Festa is our estimating coordinator, and Michael Tuck is our project manager during the pre-construction phase. So we met with ADW, and we have gone through numerous versions of the fire station. What you're going to see tonight is what we believe to be a very efficient fire station. It is a compact fire station. It promotes crew integration and harmony. There's no place to hide in this fire station, but yet when you peel back, it more than adequately houses 8 to 10 personnel. It provides office space. It provides kitchen, dining, and day room, much like open concept. It includes physical fitness facilities, a bay big enough for 2 pieces of apparatus, and over a 2,000 square foot community space that will easily accommodate 24 people in a classroom setting. But by the fire code, it will accommodate about 75 people total. It gives us the room we need should we have a major incident here in Matthews. Yes, we are planning tonight. We're going to talk about EOC equipment, but if something happens at Cruise Road, we have no place else to go. If something happens at Town Hall, we have no place else to go. So this gives us continuity of operations capability. It gives the community a space that they can claim as their own. It gives us training space, and it's a building that I think the community can be exceptionally proud of. So that's a lot of editorial, I'm sorry. But yes, the price has exceeded our original estimates. We have gone out and gotten some real-time comps that were bid under a design bid build format in January. And we are lower price per square foot than either one of those two facilities. One here in Charlotte, one in Holly Springs. So we're going to look at those numbers. This is, this is HGTV. When you watch HGTV and they throw out $35,000 to renovate a kitchen, they have no idea what you want in that kitchen, but they throw out a number. We have not defined what the bay space will look like other than square footage. We have not defined floor coverings, wall coverings, fixtures. So these estimates, hopefully, Travis, are on the high side, and we can continue to do some value engineering to get the product that we want. So the expected construction cost, like I said, is increased. We've reduced square footage and pushed and pulled. We are at 12,771 square feet, including 2 mezzanines, which provide HVAC, training, and storage areas. More than adequate space for 2 fire companies and an EMS squad. The current project price, and this has changed because I think Travis added in permitting costs, which we would normally bear, $7,824,100 or $612 a square foot. The total cost, like I said, is lower than 2 comparable stations. Both of those are around 14,000 square feet. And again, we still have a lot of work to do if we move into the DD phase or design document phase, where we put skin on the walls and the floor coverings, and we look at the technical systems that make the building run. Got the controls. Oh, here we go.
Okay. Is that right?
Okay, and this presentation is provided by Samet, so I'm going to hand it back over to Chris to kind of walk through where we are and where we're headed in this project.
Okay.
Good evening. First of all, I would like to say that I'm thrilled to be standing in the chamber with you tonight. I know that we have some budget concerns on this project, but I want you to know that the town of Matthews is very important to me. I am a resident here. I recreate, I live, my kids go to school here. You know, Matthews is extremely important to me, as is this project. So I want you to know that Samet is very committed to this project, and we are thrilled to be a part of it today. So just wanted to take the opportunity to say thank you. I appreciate the vote to have Samet be a part of this, and we're very grateful to be here with you tonight. There's a great amount of collaboration that's occurred between the town, ADW Design Consultants, and Samet. There's been a lot of effort. You know, we see a lot of client and ownership involvement through our projects. We do you know, $370 million worth of work in this town in Charlotte Metro a year, and we see all different types of owners. But I do want you to know that Chief Kinneberg and Mrs. Hawk have been very straightforward with us. We really enjoyed the working relationship, and thank you for your candor. I really appreciate when owners just tell us straight on and say, this is what we want, you know, don't mince words. And we feel like that there's been a very straight and honest conversation today. So we'd like to keep that. You know, from a pre-construction status, we are through schematic design. We have beat this design up multiple times, and we feel like that overall we do have the good bones of this building. We feel like that there's good design reflected here. The design is reflecting the the neighborhood in which it's a part of. So we feel like that overall this project is going to be a good steward of the community, is going to be well accepted. We also feel like that there's a lot of efficiencies that we've worked through to drive this schematic design, and making sure that we have balanced usable space with dead space. Areas where we feel like that we have eliminated several hundred square feet of space where we feel like that we can be more efficient. And Chief has done an incredible job of working with us and working with the architect to drive these efficiencies. So overall, as we stand now, we kind of understand what the bones are, what the layout of the building is. And now, as Chief mentioned, is time for us to go back to the boards and look at what do we need to do in order to get the fit and finish that's going to be commensurate with this building. One example I'd like to offer is that, when we looked at selections for the fit and finish of the building, what we're going to be looking for is smart options. We're going to be looking for options that make sense with this particular building for this particular use. One example of that is the exterior cladding, right? So rather than taking the superstructure of being a full block and brick across 100% of the building, we're going to take block and brick and put it into the truck bay, into the apparatus bay. But we're going to use a metal frame with wood truss, and we're going to be able to clad that with a 50 to 60 year product, rather than spending that additional capital or that additional money to go to the brick and block all the way around. But one thing that we're trying not to do is we don't want to cheapen this building and take it and say, okay, let's put vinyl siding on the side of this building. I mean, if we all come back and we say budget requires it, then we understand. But I think to date, we've really driven those efficiencies into the design as to where we are today. And we'll continue to do that and work with the town and our design consultants to make sure that we drive those smart decisions. So without further ado, one other thing I did want to mention is, we set out, and one of the things that, that we offered up to Ms. Hawk and Chief was around minority and local participation. And to date, we've held now our third outreach with our local and minority participants in the community. We've gotten really good response on this project. So we're starting to see a lot of momentum around this. We have folks that are truly, genuinely interested in this project. And what that means is not only will there be great participation, but that also has a budget effect to it as well. So having those additional subcontractors and vendors being excited about doing this project will help carry this project forward and being reflective of the community that we work. If we could let's jump into the schematic design summary and comparative project. So on this comparison, we have the town of Matthews in for the direct cost of construction at $413 per square foot. And that's before the design and other applied costs. When you look at that as a comparison between Hidden Valley and Holly Springs, we're pretty well in line. Hidden Valley is a Charlotte project, which may be challenged in terms of the type of materials selected there, but overall, that was a hard bid project that went to market, and this is what it ended up transacting at. Holly Springs is a project that does have ADW as an architect that we are at $438 per square foot. And I think it's in line with where we're at with the Station 3. Travis, can you maybe hit on some of these other applied costs?
Hey there, I'm Travis with Salmon Corporation. So one thing I want to really draw attention to is just that direct cost of construction. And I think that what we can see here is we were afforded the opportunity through a design build delivery to get real-time feedback on market conditions and drive the selection of materials to deliver a project with a construction cost lower than other similar project types. And so as we move into design fees and applied costs, this is really dependent upon the delivery method of the project. And so since this is a design build project, this includes all soft costs, all design fees, contingencies, insurances, fees, which gets us down to that total cost per square foot of $612, which again is lower than the other two projects that we're comparing against. So here, I know this is hard to see, but this is a breakout of what is included in that 7.8 million total project cost. This is the breakout of design services to get us to construction documents as well as permitting. So we've currently been released for 171,000, and then the balance would be the 621,000 to get us to 100% construction documents and permitting. Here's a milestone schedule that shows where we're at today. We're at 57. Pending approval to proceed through design development. We will progress through that through June with another pricing exercise. That will move forward through construction documents, which puts us into September, October timeframe of this year, with a anticipated construction start of November and completion and turnover of September in 2024. Here's the exterior elevation. This is, of course, a conceptual rendering, so don't get too married to it. But this is our conceptual package here. As you can see, we have the apparatus bay in the center, which has the CMU backup wall with a brick veneer. We continue that brick veneer with a water table around the rest of the facility. On the east and west side of those wings, we'll have the fiber cement siding as well as an architectural shingled roof. The community room right now is on our left side of view. Excuse me. The community room is on our right side of view, with the living quarters and operations for the fire station on the left side of the apparatus bay. There again is another view of the kind of entire zone. Here you can see the parking arrangement and layout. We are working with NCDOT for future roadway improvements that will take place along this road. So this does consider some of those setbacks and adjustments for how that will play into the development of this project. Here's our preliminary floor plan. As you can see, we have the two apparatus bays. And on the right side, we have a community room and conference room, as well as decon and tool room for the fire station. Dining and living corners and lockers on the left side with a fitness center to the rear. This is the mezzanine plan, which allows an opportunity for us to convey mechanical systems within the footprint of the building, as well as providing an opportunity for indoor training for the fire department.
So just wanted to pause there for a second and see if there's, excuse me.
Thank you.
We wanted to pause here for a second, see if there are any questions. Bill?
I have a few comments. I think some of the candor that you saw from Ms. Hawk and Chief Kinenberg were driven by the elected officials' absolute shock of how much higher this came in than described. So I'm real happy about that. I do have a couple of questions. What is the cost savings by not going full brick? How much does that save?
I would have to study that, Mayor, to have the exact number, but to give you kind of a rough ballpark, fiber cement lap siding can run around $12 a square foot versus a brick veneer that would be $25 a square foot. So you're almost doubling the cost of the exterior skin.
And you have some, perhaps this is for the chief. You have some examples that you've compared. Can you look at others as well?
Mayor, it was very hard to find real-time comparable projects. For example, Scott Gardner has been working a project in Hope Mills for over 3 years. That project bid 4 years ago. So we reached out to Scott and talked to him at length. He offered to look at this project. And there's a couple things that with a fire station is considered a critical infrastructure facility. So we looked at the geotechnical survey. We have slightly unstable soil, and I don't know, I'm not a geologist on a scale of 1 to 10. The CMU block walls in the bay give it its strength for the seismic class that we're in. We are still exploring ways to trim the budget. We've looked at, typically you lay block and then you come back and put brick on it. There is a double-sided block material, so your finished brick side is actually on both sides. So we're looking at that as a possibility, but again, it's got to marry up with the codes and the seismic load. We're still trying to figure out the bay ceiling. I was sitting at first watch the other day staring at the ceiling as I normally do, and sent Travis a picture, and I said, so how crazy stupid would this be? And that eliminates a second suspended ceiling inside the bay if we can get the insulation, and that allows us to run all of our mechanical systems much more efficiently than if they're in an enclosed space. As Travis mentioned, we've had extensive discussions with NCDOT about the looms that will be in front of this structure, and we've flipped this building 2 or 3 times. Its current orientation takes into account the looms that NCDOT plans for right in front of the fire station. So we get to take advantage of the already planned traffic lights that will control those looms. And it also provides pedestrian access across Highway 51 in a protected format, and it gives us control over those lights. Again, we haven't talked about fit and finish, haven't talked about floor coverings yet. But back to your initial question, it's been extremely hard to find anything that has been bid in recent time and built.
Okay, thank you.
And that's Travis's.
One thing I do want to add to that is, we did work in collaboration, of course, with ADW through a design build delivery method, and they have a plethora of experience in recent projects as well. And we looked at everything to ensure that cost was aligned or we're driving it lower than other project averages in the design of this project.
Thank you. I'm having a little trouble reconciling 2 pages of your financials. Help me here. Let's take a simple one. Permit fees. You have $2.47 a square foot. But you go to the second page, and the permitting is $14,200. That comes out to $1.11 a square foot. Can you help me understand?
I'm going to point to it.
Sure.
Permitting cost right here is currently $31,565.
Oh, I was looking at the 14.2 right above that.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so the total is 31. Okay, so I understand. Okay, thank you.
And that's all included. This is just a breakdown of what's in the estimate.
And this is a question for the chief. With the advent of Santé and all of the development that's going on in that area, I'm a little concerned that 2 bays is not going to be sufficient for future growth. I'm sure you've taken that into consideration. Can you help me understand that?
Santé is a rather large development, but it doesn't. One could make the same argument for Windsor Run. It is our largest single development, and it is arguably the farthest place from a fire station. The positioning of Station 3 cuts the distance from Idlewild to Santé in half. The addition of Mint Hill Station 2 that we talked about provides additional resources under mutual aid that will be coming down the Idlewild corridor. And I know there's a lot of concern about the Idlewild corridor and our ability to get there, but Idlewild has half as much traffic as John Street, and we get to 485 every day. So we're not worried that we can't get there.
So you're content that 2 bays would service the population for how many years in the future?
For the foreseeable future, because, you know, on the other side of the county line, Hemi Bridge would be second due to Sante, and they're about 2.5 miles away as well. So we would be approaching it from both ends.
From one more question, and then I'll push the microphone, is from what I'm understanding and what I'm reading lately, the compound costs of construction are going up at quite an astounding rate, something like 1 to 1.5% per month. So having said that, looking at the commencement of the construction, which is scheduled for November of 2023, and we all know that typically those things don't happen exactly on time. So we're looking at maybe January of 24, which is 8-9 months from now. So I'm anticipating, and help me relieve my concerns, that 7.8 is going to be around 8.6 by the time we actually start construction.
I'm going to let Keith address that, or Chris, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's a very good point. The good news is I do feel that what we're seeing in the start of this year is a plateau of cost. And so we hope that continues. But that's what we're here to do, is to try to predict cost and forecast that to the construction start date. So I'm optimistic that 8.6 is not the escalation rate that we may have seen in the past 2 years doesn't maintain itself in this year as well.
I just want to make sure that the listening public and everything, this is just for the construction of the building. It has nothing to do with outfitting, labor costs, all of that are associated with it, correct?
That is correct. There's about $200,000 in FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment.
And I don't mean to get into that now. I just want to make sure.
Right.
That particular fact was known.
Yes.
Thank you.
This is a significant financial undertaking by the town with the goal of improving fire and EMS response for the whole town.
Thank you.
Chief, I got a question about the room, couple questions. What's the main vision for what'll be posted there? Like what'll be used for? I guess my concern is it's just gonna sit empty for a lot of the time, so.
It functions as a secondary training room for us, for the fire department. Later on tonight, you're going to hear from Chief Williams about a coordination center at the police department. This provides an additional place for us to host, or a redundant facility to host that function if it's needed. It's away from downtown. You can block Highway 51 at Phillips and Idlewild, and nobody can get to you here. You are secure. We want to partner with Park and Rec and let them put this on the schedule, let them manage the community room. But I mentioned earlier, continuity of operations planning. If, God forbid, the air conditioner goes out here at Town Hall, now we have a place big enough for the finance department or HR to come work. The conference room, separate from the classroom, provides breakout space for those intimate conversations that council may want to have if something big is happening. And if you look at the whole, I am very proud of the station design. I'm gonna be peacock for a little while. We pushed and pulled, we beat up ADW. ADW's designed probably 45 fire stations, and I've not seen one look like this. Chief Davis and I, we come from a school of thought where if you allow people to hide, you lose crew integrity. There's no place to hide here. The kitchen, day room, and dining area is one big space. The front door opens into the hallway that takes you there. That's where the heart of the fire station is. The company officers' offices are right next to the kitchen, dining, day room area. The maintenance facilities and the storage facilities are more than adequate for what we do. We've used a European unisex locker room. We will never have to worry about, do we have enough female lockers or male lockers? 4 unisex, 3-piece bathrooms are accessed off the locker room, as is the weight room. No big stinky, sweaty guy is going to wander through the bedroom to get to the locker room. He's going to go right to the showers. So we're very proud of how the station came across. We've listened to you. I've heard front porch over and over and over again. We have 3 front porches. We've heard we want people to be able to sit on the front porch and meet their neighbors. We have 4 porches to sit and meet our neighbors. It doesn't have as much brick as maybe former councils would like to have, but we're across the street from a park. And this is to me, you keep talking about Matthews. This screams Matthews. It looks like Old Town. It looks like it should be across the street from the park. Probably editorialized too much again.
That mostly answers my question. What's the size?
It's roughly 2,000 square feet. We don't have a set of plans that with us right now. Oh,
Other questions or comments for Sam folks or Chief? Sure.
Could be too. Let's just back up for a second. What was the square footage of the original scoping document? What were 10K?
10,000 square foot fire station and a 2,000 square foot community space ad alternate.
Okay, so it was an ad alternate. So what were the original budget numbers thrown out? 10 plus the 2, or was it just the 10 alone?
When we were talking about a fire station, it was a fire station, 10,000 square feet, and it was roughly 4 to 6 million. It went up fast because again, we're in the 2018, 19, 20 range.
Yeah, the original iteration was just a fire station. As Rob and I have been talking about this project from the beginning, it has included a community room. The original cost estimates were being done on a cost per square foot basis, where we believed that we were in the 475 to 495 a square foot ballpark. So by that math, you could comfortably fit the entire design product that you see today within the budget of about 6.5 million, which is where we thought we were going to land very comfortably when we started this process a couple of months ago.
Well, I just didn't know what the board's expectation or recall, because I recall 10,000 square feet. And you add 2,000 square feet, that's $1.4 million. Or if you take 1.4 off of the 8, back down to 6.36. So it's sort of like the question is do you want a fire station and add the community room, which I think is a good adjunct to this piece. It's kind of the question is, do you build it now or build it later? If you build it later, it's going to cost you more of an arm and a leg. But I don't know that the numbers, yes, they're higher, no doubt about it. But I don't know if they're like so exponentially out of control when you're realizing we're talking about 10,000 plus 2 alternate. I stand. But that's just my 2 cents from the standpoint that it may not be as outrageous as we thought. But I would suspect inflationary wise, material costs are good 20 to 30% more than what we saw just 3 or 5 years ago.
Well, and as Mr. Urban is probably aware, the cost to build a municipal facility is among the highest costs in the construction industry. because of the more stringent lifetime requirements of the building. And we're developing an entire 4-acre site where you can spread the cost of, you could get 10 homes on this site and spread the cost of grading, utility work over the cost of 10 homes. We've built in ample parking. Parking won't be a problem. Again, we've pushed the building back, which takes us right to the limits of our setbacks. So I think we're developing the parcel to its maximum extent.
Mr. Smaller.
So looking at your roadmap, when will you actually sign contracts for the construction? In what month?
So looking at this, the request obviously is to get through construction documents. And that time period is June to September 2023. So we would probably begin negotiating a contract July, August of 2023, and then sign it once we have a GMP.
So all the contracts would be signed and finalized by September 23.
Building permit submission, pricing feedback, it'd be October 2023.
So you have to wait for the contract signed before the
Correct.
building permit.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so, all right, so October. And are you going to come back with another costing prior to the contracting phase?
Yes, sir. We would do a design document pricing budget as well as a construction document pricing budget. So there'll be 2 more iterations of that.
And that's before contracts are signed?
Yes, sir. Before a contract is
All
signed.
right, thank you.
Any further questions or comments? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Very much.
We'll sit in recess. Good evening and welcome to the Matthews Board of Commissioner meeting for March 27th, 2023. I'm Matthews. Now, Commissioner Larry Whitman, Mayor Pro Tem Ken McCool, Town Manager Becky Falk, Town Attorney Charlie Buckley, Commissioner Mark Capano, Commissioner Gina Hoover, Commissioner John Urban, Town Clerk Lori Gambino, and Communications Coordinator Maureen Key. Let's start with the invocation. Commissioner Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So God tells us we shouldn't be anxious for anything. We should lay everything out to him every morning. He takes care of our problems for us. And I've been reading a book by Max Lucado or Lucado, however you want to pronounce it. Named theologian, Christian, has a church in Texas. It's written about 400 books. And he wrote something really profound in this last book I just finished. I can share with you. It has to do with anxieties, which I think we all share, and sometimes we need to live from that. So he says, today I will live today. Yesterday is past. Tomorrow is not yet. I'm left with today. So today I will live today. Relive yesterday? No. I will learn from it. I will seek mercy for it. I will take joy in it, but I won't live in it. The sun is setting yesterday. The sun is yet to rise on tomorrow. Worry about the future? To what gain? It deserves a glance, nothing more. I can't change tomorrow until tomorrow. Today I will live today. I will face today's challenges with today's strength. I will dance today's waltz with today's music. I will celebrate today's opportunities with today's hope today.
Thank you, Commissioner Urban, for those very wise words. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Town Manager, do we have any additions, deletions, or movements within the agenda?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Entertain a vote to adopt the agenda. So moved. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem McCool, second by Whitley, all in favor? On to public comment. You shared with me, Lori, that nobody signed up in advance, correct? One in our studio audience tonight, care to make a public comment? Green, do we have anybody on our Zoom audience that you'd like to make a public comment?
No, we do not.
All right, we move to agenda item number 6, recess our regular meeting for a public hearing on historic designation of property as follows. We have a motion for read this. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Poole, second by Commissioner Whitley to recess our regular meeting. All in favor? Opposed? That's unanimously. So again, we're going to have a public hearing on the historic designation of property as follows. The property known as Renfro Commercial Properties listed under tax parcel identification numbers 215-01303, 215-01304, 215-01416, and 215-01417, and including the exterior of the frame building located on tax parcel identification number 215-01303, the exterior of the gin operator's house and brick commercial building located on tax parcel identification number 215-01304, and the land listed under tax parcel identifications numbers 215-01303, 215-01304, 215-01416, and 215-01447, Mecklenburg County Tax Office, Charlotte, North Carolina, as of December 1st, 2022. Said properties are owned by PCM Holdings LLC and are located at 156 North Trade Street, 106 North Trade Street, and 125 East John Street. All are in Matthews, North Carolina. Such a designation will be pursuant to Chapter 160D, Article 9, as amended of the General Statutes of North Carolina. Sure.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, what was the impetus for bringing this up at this point in time? I mean, all these are wonderful things to do, but I'm curious to find out what was the reason behind this one.
Jay, can you speak to that?
Good evening. So we were approached by the Charlotte Landmarks Commission, who commissioned the report at the request of the property owner of these parcels. There's supposed to be a member of the Landmarks Commission staff here to present the hearing this evening, so we can table this to later in the agenda or just actually. So we haven't met the person. I didn't recognize him.
Worley?
Good evening. My name is Tommy Warlick out here on behalf of Charlotte Mecklenburg Historic Landmarks Commission. I appreciate the time to meet with you this evening. I apologize. I wasn't quite sure of the how you handle things here, so I just wanted to make sure I was here and ready to answer any questions you might have. I know you've got a very full agenda tonight, so I don't want to bore you with a whole lot of information. I'm happy to answer any questions that you've got, but I would like to reiterate the points that are raised in the designation report. Basically, that the Renfro commercial properties really fulfill the entire story of the Renfro family with regard to the commercial developments they brought to Matthews over the course of the years. Of course, they started with the Renfro hardware store, started in 1900, but they continually grew and added additional commercial ventures during this time period. The buildings that you are being asked to consider for landmark historic designation worked not only in conjunction with serving the cotton gin operation itself, but also other commercial ventures that the family pursued. As the cotton industry grew, so did Matthews grow. And the Renfro family's introduction of a cotton gin here in this neighborhood, in this area in 1906 certainly helped drive that. Over the course of the century, as the cotton industry slowly fell apart, slowly declined, the Renfros were actually able to use these properties in other ways, and basically becoming the first commercial real estate brokers in the area, almost becoming the precursors of what you now have as your depot shopping center here. I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have with regard to this, but it is the recommendation of the Charlotte Mecklenburg Historic Landmarks Commission that these properties be recognized as local historic landmarks.
All right, do we have any questions for Mr. Worley?
So we're basically stores and we're including what they call Renfro hardware annex, correct?
The Renfro annex is part of the current designation for the hardware store. So
Okay.
this is actually the frame building that was the old post office.
Okay.
This is the brick structure, the 1950 brick structure that served as the shop for the cotton gin that's located on Trade Street, and then the frame building back on Cotton Gin.
So from a standpoint of the landmarks commission, do you have any language or policy in which the person that owns the property has to maintain those and make sure, well, I led it back to the barn and the home out of the greenhouse, and the barn was in disrepair, need to be stabilized, etc. And want to make sure that even through designation, you've done enough leverage that contains those properties that they're stabilized, because basically they get the designation, it's taxes, etc., and then structure fails. So could you reiterate what kind of policies you have in place to sort of make sure that they're stabilized and help them to it?
Sure, absolutely. So we basically are watching and working in connection with the landowners to make sure that the property is maintained at an appropriate level. If there are any requested changes that the property owner would like to make, they have to go through a process called the certificate of appropriateness process that requires some collaboration between the property owner and the commission to make sure that it is done in a way that is sensitive to the historic, cultural, architectural significance. As you mentioned, there is a tax benefit because this is an exterior only designation. That tax benefit is a tax deferral of up to 35%. Should it fall into the disrepair, should it become a situation where the property was have to be condemned as a result of some type of disrepair, obviously that deferral will be lost, and the property owner will be required to pay back the deferral that was approved over the past 3 years.
Mr. Tafano?
Hello.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
Yes, that's fine. So, as you may or may not be aware, there was a bond referendum passed that part of that money is going to have a major impact on this particular stretch up the street. I'm asking out of ignorance because I don't know what historic landmarks, what responsibility they have or we have to them or they have to the town in terms of renovations coming forward, or if there was any developer that wanted to buy that land and develop it else. So maybe you can educate me and others that are listening on how that could.
Sure, happy to do so. So much like the property owner has the obligations to go through the certificate of appropriateness process for any type of changes, that would apply to renovations as well. If the city were to be interested in widening sidewalks or engaging in other types of things that might encroach upon the designated property itself, the city would work with the Historic Landmark Commission as well as the property owner to try to do so again in a manner that is sensitive to the historical, cultural, and architectural significance of the property. Ultimately, the Landmarks Commission does not have the authority to stop a historic property from being destroyed. So that is something that per the statute, the landowner still has. The greatest power that we have in that regard is ultimately to defer the destruction for a period of up to 365 days. All we can do basically is try to negotiate with the property owner at that point in time to do whatever we can to save the structure, even if it requires moving it or something like that. But ultimately, we can't stop that.
Thank you. That was very informative. Thank you.
Any other questions from any of the elected officials? Anybody in the audience like to speak in favor or against this historic designation? Anybody in our virtual audience? Jay, does this go to the planning board? Does not, so it comes back to us on our next meeting, second meeting in April, which is I had 24. This will come back to us on April 24th. So thank you, appreciate you coming on. Sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Motion to convene our regular meeting. Claire? Motion by Mr. Delacour, second by Ridley, all in favor? Second our regular meeting on the agenda item number 8, our consent agenda. Ridley?
Larry does this all the time. He's very good at it. I got to figure out how Larry does it. Let's make you move the consent agenda items 8A through I2.
Second that.
Motion by Commissioner Urban, a second by Commissioner Gardner, all in favor?
I have a question.
Okay, sorry for that. Yes.
On the Festival of India, is town financing any part of that at all?
Corey, can you speak to that? No.
Yes, our department is partnering with the Association of Charlotte, who is their name. There is a financial contribution that we're making along with financial contribution that they're making.
And what is that amount?
I have to double check. Gonna say around $10,000.
Okay, thank you.
And just to confirm, then that makes us a formal co-sponsor of the event with associated billing.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Maybe I'm correct about this, but part of our funding for that was an ASC grant. Correct for this year?
Double check exactly what we listed on the application. But usually we do list events like this on that application.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Urban, a second by Commissioner Garner. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Unanimously, thank you. We'll move on to item 9A. Consider options for a digital sign at fire station. Great.
Following up on the board action at the January 23rd meeting, which the board approved the purchase and installation of an 8mm digital sign for replacement at Fire Station 1. At the February 13th meeting, the board requested staff explore ways in which we could improve the sign, perhaps by enlarging it or relocating it. So staff looked into those two options, and here is what our report is. purchasing a larger sign is possible. A sign about twice the size of what we have now would be about $60,000. And speaking with our sign vendor, they suggested that we would have to rebuild the entire base of the sign in order to support the increase in height. So those costs would be about $15,000 to replace the monument sign and rebuild the base. So that brings the total cost of a larger display to over $75,000. So there's also some zoning considerations to be made. The fire station, or excuse me, the fire department is currently zoned R12 residential single family. While fire stations aren't allowed use in this district, internally illuminated signs are not. The existing digital sign was in compliance when it was initially installed, but the UDO requirements have since changed. So it's now considered a legal non-conforming sign. So that gives us a couple of options. If the town wishes to increase the size of the digital sign, rezoning, a zoning variance, or a text amendment. Staff does not recommend a variance, as there's likely no hardship that can be demonstrated, and the Board of Adjustment has denied a variance request from the town in the past. And the planning department reports that the simplest path would be a text amendment. Lastly, the sign could be relocated. However, digital/internally illuminated signs are not allowed within the downtown overlay district. So the only nearby option is Country Place Park. A portion of that park is zoned RI and would allow for a digital sign. However, the presence of a digital sign could disrupt the natural setting of the park. The board also requested information about the warranty associated with the new sign. The parts are covered for 5 years and the labor is covered for 1 year. With all that being considered, staff recommends moving forward with the 8mm digital display.
Any questions for Maureen? I'd
like to make a motion that we vote to approve the attached budget amendment for the 8mm digital sign as previously approved by the board.
Second.
Second that.
By Member Pro Tem McCool, second by Commissioner Garner. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That's unanimously. Thank you for that detailed look into that. I appreciate it. One of the next item, 8B, I'm sorry, 9B, consider revisions to development plan for Matthew Station Street 5.
Yeah, I'll be really brief. As you see here in the memo, we have an update request from our developer, the lot of Matthew Station Street. Back in December, the board voted to approve the final site plan elevation drawings. We have set a closing date that's been delayed several times. For the past several months, the developer has been assessing the viability of the food, all the marketable concept. It has made some proposed changes that he has shared with some of you in small groups over the past several weeks. Tonight, he wants to formally unveil that. The request you'll notice in the memo is not for formal motion action. We're more or less looking for a consensus of the board that you generally like the direction it's going. If that's the case, the plan will bring final site plan elevation here in the next 90 days. And with that, I'll take any questions you have or Commissioner Everett.
Thank you. I should have mentioned that Commissioner Urban was recused from this vote since he involved as the architect of every portion of this project. Commissioner Capano.
Yes, Jay, I just want to make sure the public is aware that there was a closing date associated with the land that we sale. This organization, what was that closing date?
Charlie, we're looking at March 30th or 31st currently.
So are we planning to still go forward with that, or are we going to delay that until we see the term?
I think that's to be determined based on the conversation this evening. If we had kind of consensus on moving forward.
No.
The applicant or the developer is willing to close on the property if there is enough positive feedback from the board direction of the usages of the property, understanding that elevation approval will still be required by this board.
Excellent.
So I had the opportunity to meet with MD and review the plans like most everybody else did as well, is that correct? So I think we're all familiar with the plans are basically elimination of the 8 or 10 full kitchens with cost prohibitive, still have the rooftop gathering and etc. So I'm happy with the direction that is now. That's around that. Good. So a lot of heads nod. I think we're good.
Okay.
I think we need a motion to approve the deed of the property. And
Believe that action is taken.
we've already looked at that. Okay. I was just asking for confirmation. So we can start.
So good evening. So yeah, we are okay as long as the board is okay, and we'll close on the time and then submit change on the elevation.
Great. I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was quick. Move on to item 9C, consider construction of emergency operations center. Chief.
Good evening. Fairly straightforward. Part of the predecessor, we've already been planning out emergency operations center, or emergency coordination center. The plans with the planned construction of fire station number 3, realized that that space, that huge community space that they're building might also serve as an EOC that's constructed. But in the meantime, we thought that we could upfit training rooms we have on the second floor of our police department. I know you are familiar with, probably been upwards of 1,000 square feet. We could turn that into a emergency coordination center at relatively little expense, using asset forfeiture funds, 40,000 from the urban area security initiative, and 50,000 from state grant. So a large part of that expense would be for an almost 12 by 6.5 foot LED video wall, similar to the one we saw, not quite as big as the one we saw that in the county, but that has the ability to display at 7 different sources simultaneously on scale of windows. Also some 65-inch flat panels on each side wall, video and audio connections, will provide the computer laptops. And we worked with the fire department on this. What we were doing would be sufficient to meet the needs. Police, fire, and medic gathering together during an emergency, being able to communicate with the county EOC and other local agencies. And also be a place where town officials could meet during these emergencies. And we would also provide breakout spaces within the department. One of the good things about this is portable, so that video wall can be relocated to Fire Station 3's space, if so desired, once that building is constructed.
I just have one comment. I'm certainly really happy with where the funding's coming from. That's makes it a lot easier for us to vote yes. But we did receive, I received, and I think some others on this board received some comments from some of our citizens asking about the necessity for this video wall and really need, spaceship type approach. Do you see that? I mean, in your experience, do you see that being readily used and something that's necessary to have that level of multi windows, etc.? One of our citizens wrote and said he thought that this was overkill or excessive. So how do you address that comment?
I would expect to say it's not a good thing. I think it's the way most emergency operations centers are equipped these days. It's current technology, and I see no reason why we can't progress along with others in 2023.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. Oh, now let me ask you, are we anticipating BOC fire station? Once this
speak to that. We've had a lot of conversations about that. The current vision right now is that the EOC, or I guess we're calling it ECC these days, the ECC would be located at the police department. And we would likely foresee the community room at Fire Station 3 as being a more backup location, more of a simplified technology in that space that if for some reason the police department location went down or was inaccessible during, say, a natural disaster, then we would be able to get the location of Fire Station 3 up and running quickly with some limited technology so that would be operational. But we do foresee this being the permanent location. But as Chief pointed out, because the technology is portable, as we continue to assess the best location for it, we're not investing fully in materials that couldn't ultimately be moved if we decided there was a better location.
So as a retired police officer, I can tell you technology training that the officers don't shoot simulators and those type of things. It must need police officers. All right, split second decision to tell you, the officers confronted and seeing all of the shooting, lawsuits, body cameras, and what it takes. And I know that it is money well spent that we can train our officers, because I know what it is. You're in a situation, again, you got to make a split decision that fits the rest of the life. But at the same time, we saw in Mississippi all the tornadoes, disasters. Every town must have somewhere where you can meet, coordinate, and communicate with Mecklenburg County on any disaster that occur. We don't have it. I'm 110% there. This room, the room is there to be designated for that. And I'm in favor of portable. So with, like Chief said, Mexico, if we have to go to the Fire Station 3, we can block off Phillips Road, out. We can walk and operate there, those that we need to win. So I'm in favor of whatever it is for our police officers. They'll train, be prepared for any situation, because their life is on the line, their career is on the line. And so you try to do the best you can. And I know it's hard. It's a split second. I challenge any of you. And it'd be good once you get those simulators up. Encourage all of us, let us go through it and see how long and see how many split second you gotta make. See how many people you kill in. You'll find out well worth the training. Split second, then you gotta shoot or don't shoot. Thank you, Chief, and I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing this whenever it's done. Thanks.
Commissioner Fawnin?
Yes, town manager. I know it's not directly associated with this, it's sort of tangential. Is the 911 center, the PSAP, where did we leave that?
We do have some feedback on that I can email the board. In a nutshell, there are a limited number of PSAP licenses in the state, and they're not available.
There are none.
They're not available.
Okay, very well. Well, having said that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the use of these funds to allow the project to move forward.
Motion by Commissioner Fawnin, second by Commissioner Whitley. Any further discussion? Commissioner Hurd.
We've had this discussion before, and quite a few years. Chief K is more familiar with it. We were talking about hardening. We're talking about in the police station on the second floor in a pre-engineered level building. Have we done things over the past 10 years to improve our life safety in that part of the building?
We did some investigation into hardening the roof, was one of the main topics of conversation. And what we sort of walked away with was that it was quite cost prohibitive to try to do anything. That the likelihood of the existing roof, which is in very good condition, and we did some significant maintenance to it last budget cycle, is if that roof goes, it's likely that there are other issues that would make that facility uninhabitable. And so we would probably be relocating to Fire Station 3 as it is, which just kind of spoke to the importance of having multiple options around town to bring up an emergency coordination center if needed. So, so the roof is not something that we think would be a good use of town funds to make any changes to, given the order that is in at this time.
Yeah, I guess just from a proactive standpoint, talking about fire station, but if a storm comes through, takes you down, you're not relocating anything to fire station number 3.
We would have enough, we talked about putting some video screens behind panels so they can be kind of locked away within that community room. And so the general public using that space, it would just be a normal room. But there are panels that you could open up.
I'm talking about what the police station now exists. If it was hit, you'd be down, you're not relocating it, because it's all gone.
Correct.
Okay, but the fire station aspect of it, you have to talk about it, but I mean, you could look at this stage again of design, brings the hardening that facility.
Where we didn't want to harden it to make that the main ECC location is that the existing police department is already hardened, not the roof, but some of the access points are much more secure. You've got the gates. There were some additional measures put into the front that it's nice controlled access that would just be additional cost at Fire Station 3 that you wouldn't need most of the time, whereas you already need it at the police department, and so it already exists.
Yeah, I just know we talked about it. I didn't know what the outcome was. That's a pretty big to do, and maybe down the road we look at the police station, we look at some structure underneath the roof, do something like that. But I've done these, and it's a little different where we're at. And should something happen, like 20 years ago, 51, which was probably no one from our police station. Something about.
Yeah, I do recall, as town manager mentioned, that we did, not from a natural disaster standpoint, but from a access standpoint, we did harden the publics and parking impediments and all that, so you can't drive a car through the front like you did before a truck. Yeah, we've done that. And I know from personal experience that you can get walking out the police station and walk up for days. Well, that's pretty secure. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Byrne?
I didn't receive the emails that you were talking about, but I did have somebody ask about the proximity of the police station to the railroad. And if there's a derailment, there's concern for having an emergency operation center that close to the train tracks. Rob, can you speak to that? Another quarter of a mile is what it says.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're 17 square miles and the railroad goes right through the middle of it. But I'll go back to previous conversations under U.S. railway regulations and urban security regulations. Nothing like derailed in Ohio comes through Matthews. Our line runs directly from Wilmington to downtown Charlotte. So those loads are not allowed on any railway that goes through downtown, through a major metropolitan area. We have a series of separate redundancies. The backup to the police department communications is in the conference room at Station 1. The backup conceivably to the coordination center would be at Station 2. Mr. Tufano asked, is 2 bays enough? We want additional space in each of our facilities in case we have to move from one to the other. Another threat is the brains of the Mecklenburg County Radio Communications Center sits a quarter of a mile from Matthews PD. So if something were to take out the police department, it will take out our communications. We will have major problems we are but a node on a major system. That's where we would call on Charlotte-Mecklenburg Emergency Management to handle coordination for us out of 500 Dalton downtown, with the training academy out on Shopton Road. So we build in redundancies to help for the what ifs. And knowing what those plans are, we need to embark on some level of continuity of operations planning. So we don't all arrive at the same place at the same time, thinking that we're going to do our job there. We have to split up. So, we've got just the same potential as a transportation incident on 74. We've got a lot of potentials, but we've got a lot of redundancies.
Any further questions or comments? Call for the vote, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to item 10A, new business, receive the monthly budget report. Here's the poll.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. To kind of go back to the last discussion just a little bit, as a person who has lived in an EOC for up to 10 days at a time without going home, those video panels and all the things are much needed items for the people inside to function and help the citizens in the community. I kind of get PTSD when I hear those 3 letters EOC, because they're living in them during hurricanes for many times. And it's another reason it's good to live inland a little bit and not have that threat on an annual basis. But now to the part that we're all here to talk about is the monthly budget report. And things are still looking very well for the town of Matthews. Our ad valorem tax collection rate is 2.04% higher year over year than it was last year at this time. So everyone is still paying their tax bills and paying them in a timely manner. Local option sales tax are 20.58% higher year over year than what they were at the same time last year. So those numbers are continuing to be favorable. Occupancy tax numbers in your report look, and they are showing lower than last year at this time. However, the county has been behind in sending the distributions, and we've actually received 2 distributions in March where we received nothing in February. So that is not a number that I am concerned about, because we have caught back up, as the county has caught back up in the month of March, where they did not send out a distribution in February. And rental car tax continues to be right at 6% higher year over year. Prepared food and beverage, we've talked about the city of Charlotte sent out the full year's amount at one time instead of in 2 increments. But things on that front, based on just observations driving around town, this money comes to us a year in arrears. So the money we received in FY23 is for prepared food and beverage sales in 22. So based on what we're seeing this year, I see no reason why next year would be anything but higher. And that's pretty much my report.
Mr. Potter.
Thank you, sir.
I
What is the fund balance right now?
do not have that number right off
Okay,
hand.
just send it.
I will.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Teresa, we have the auditors coming the next month.
Yes.
So Commissioner Sana will also be providing the balance from last year's audit. So would you like it before then, or do you want to wait until next week?
No, it's not time sensitive.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Report. On item 10B, consider resolution on medic response configuration, Chief Kimber.
Council manager. So Back in February, Medic Executive Director Don Peterson briefed you on the proposed response configuration changes that will take place later this year. We have been involved in those changes. Personally, I've been on the steering committee for that. Becky has been involved with the town manager group. We are, for the most part, supportive of what Medic hopes to achieve in their response reconfiguration. But there's still a lot of unanswered questions. We have asked Medic some very pointed data questions that have been met with very vague answers. So, like the town of, excuse me, town of Davidson, we would like to consider the attached resolution to clearly stake out our desire to see the data and to remain engaged in the process and force change or a reversal if it doesn't bear the fruit that Medic says it will. Our number one reason for being is for the welfare of our citizens, and this is extremely important. So we would ask the council consider passing this resolution that will be forwarded to county manager and to the Medic leadership and the medical control board, so they know exactly where Matthews stands on the issue.
Chief, would you mind reading the resolution into the record?
Resolution regarding proposed Medic response reconfiguration. Whereas the town of Matthews is a community dedicated to public safety, and whereas public safety is one of the core responsibilities of the town of Matthews and of critical importance to the town board of commissioners, and whereas the town strives to continually improve the service we deliver to our citizens by implementing public safety best practices and through partnerships, working collaboratively, and whereas Matthews Fire and EMS Department provides critical fire protection and emergency medical services and is an asset to our community. And whereas the Matthews Fire and EMS Department is a first responder agency under contract with Medic to provide first responder emergency medical services within the town of Matthews and the surrounding community. And whereas Medic has proposed a response configuration intended to better manage their limited resources and assets of the system while providing improved response to higher acuity EMS calls and to minimize the risk of lights and siren responses. And whereas Medic can implement these changes without the approval of the town of Matthews. And whereas the town board of commissioners and the Matthews Fire and EMS Department are cautiously optimistic that the proposed changes will be beneficial to the citizens of Matthews and the operations of the Matthews Fire and EMS Department. And whereas Town Board of Commissioners and the Matthews Fire and EMS Department have concerns about the potential impact to the Matthews Fire and EMS Department's ability to provide services to the community, and concerns that EMS calls in Matthews will not all have Matthews Fire and EMS response. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Town Board of Commissioners do hereby request the following should the proposed reconfiguration go into effect. 1, Matthews Fire and EMS Department be provided with all the call data for calls originating in Matthews simultaneously when Medic receives the data, so that the Matthews Fire and EMS Department has the same information that Medic does, and to ensure that the fire department personnel have the needed information to change the response priority if warranted. Number 2, that Matthews Fire and EMS Department be dispatched on all EMS calls for service in Matthews jurisdiction as determined per the current protocol. Number 3, that Medic, the Matthews Fire and EMS Department, and all interested parties conduct reviews of calls originating from the town of Matthews 28105 to analyze the data of both the current configuration and under the revised configuration, and review performance of both Medic and the first responders to determine the impacts of the configuration changes to the citizens of Matthews and the other communities in the county and to the Matthews Fire and EMS Department. And number 4, that promptly upon the determination that any material deficiencies in service to the citizens of Matthews and the Matthews Fire and EMS Department. The Town Board of Commissioners expects Medic to immediately take action, rectify the situation. Expected actions include, but are not limited to, adjustments to the new response configuration, new changes to the configuration, or a return to the previous configuration. This resolution is submitted to Medic, Mecklenburg County Board of Commissioners, and other local governments in Mecklenburg County, adopted this 27th day of March 2023.
Questions, comments, or motion?
Make a motion that we approve the attached resolution.
By Mayor Pro Tem McCool, second by Commissioner Whitley. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief. Item 10C, consider management agreement for Matthews Free Medical Clinic. Town Manager Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. What we have before you tonight is the culmination of a longstanding quandary of how to continue to provide a facility for the Matthews Free Medical Clinic that has been in a town-owned facility for the last 10 years, while working around some state requirements related to being able to extend leases and upset bid processes that are required. And so our town attorney, Charlie Buckley, was able to determine that a lease agreement would be, a management agreement would be the appropriate course of action to continue the great partnership that we have with the Matthews Free Medical Clinic. And so it would be transitioning from their current lease agreement to what is known as a management agreement, which essentially says that in return for use of the building, they agree to provide the free medical services to the qualifying individuals in our. So there are a few slight changes to this agreement. The largest one being that under the current agreement, if there was any capital cost over $2,500, the town was responsible for it and is adjusted up to $10,000. So there's a potential of some cost savings under this new agreement. And then we're also clearly spelling out that we are responsible for the parking lot of the facility, regardless of the cost, given the additional town events that are held in that area at Stumptown Park and that use that parking lot. It didn't feel fair that the heavy wear and tear that's coming from some of the larger trailers and such that utilize the park, that would be something that they should be impacted by. So this has been reviewed by the Matthews Medical Clinic Board of Directors and their attorney. They have approved it unanimously. So happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Topano.
Yes, it's the clinic currently being charged a rent.
So the way the lease agreement was spelled out was that there was a lease amount determined that went up every year, but there was also an option that in lieu of significant upfit to the building, that would be counted towards their rent payments. And so it was determined, I don't have the date, it precedes my time, but it was determined that the amount of investment that they made in upfitting that facility met the rent obligations for the entire duration of the lease. And so they have not been paying any annual or monthly amounts because they have met those obligations with the investment.
So going from a rentor to a manager, does that eliminate future rent payments?
So the way that this management agreement is spelled out, it does forego asking for any kind of remuneration on a monthly or annual basis. It mirrors the agreement that we approved a couple of years ago with the Senior Center. So we own the building, we maintain it, any capital costs in excess of $10,000. That they run the facility on the inside, they're responsible for all of the operations, all of the smaller costs, but they do not pay anything on a monthly or annual basis.
Do we account for that accounting wise as a loss?
I would have to defer to our auditors if there is an actuarial depreciation. There is a depreciation of all of our town buildings, so I would imagine that this would be the same.
Any further questions or motion? Commissioner Gardner.
Because the Matthews Free Medical Clinic really provides assets in the town of Matthews, I would like to recommend, or I would like to make a motion that we approve the management agreement between the town of Matthews and the Matthews Free Medical Clinic as proposed.
Second.
By Commissioner Gardner, second by Commissioner Urban. Any further discussion? Favor? Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you for line item 10D. Consider offer to purchase property adjacent to 490 John Street. Town Manager Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once again, members of the board, we received a letter from Brook Chase Properties that is doing business in East Charles Street LLC. And Mr. Harris Smith, the owner, he has expressed an interest in purchasing approximately 15 to 20 feet of residual property adjacent to 409 East John Street, which is a parallel to Charles Buckley Way. I'm not sure if we have anyone operating the screen that could pull up Polaris to show that if anyone is interested. But the first step in this process is for the board to just basically give a head nod that they are willing to entertain this conversation. We do not see any for this residual property. It's really a remnant parcel. The board bought a parcel obviously to be able to build Charles Buckley Way. And this is really just a small portion of property that is left over. So right now the town just maintains it. It's too narrow for us to have any use for it, but I believe the requester has some plans for the adjacent property there on East John Street that would help them with their development plans. So yeah, it's the parcel adjacent to Charles Buckley Way with the house on it. Yes. So it would be about 15 to 20 feet of right of way that is adjacent to this parcel next to Charles Buckley Way. So if the board is interested, then the requester would provide a formal proposal with a proposed dollar amount and a bid deposit. If the board was still interested in that, then we would have to go through an outside bid process at any point in time, or could change their mind and say that they do not wish to continue, but we are just looking for feedback at this point in time regarding whether or not the board would like to entertain this offer.
Quick clarification, it's not right away that you're suggesting to sell, it's remnant property. When we bought the property, they put the road in several years later. They did not put in a survey the 60-foot right of way, but what this is remnant property to the west side of the property that the town owns. So it's to the west of the right of way line and to the east of Gary's property that he's getting ready to develop out there. So it's remnant property, not right of way property.
Who is that road named after? Commissioner Gardner.
Actually, my question was answered by Charles's comments, but I was going to have a little brevity and say this was your road. So are you going to have to recuse yourself?
I'm not supposed to get a ticket on it.
Once told Charlie that it's a little bit crooked. Appropriately.
That was purposely designed that way. I told nobody ever believed it. It's a perfectly straight line.
What are the general costs? I think that is listed.
You could just approve the operation of the sale just for formal purposes.
So, I'd like to recommend the approval consideration site. Sale or portion of the residual property adjacent to 409 East John Street by requesting the East John Street LLC Brook Chase property submit a formal proposal and deposit to the town.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner DePaulo. Do we have a second? Second by Mayor Pro Tem McCool. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. We'll move on to the next. Sorry, Garner. Passes 6-1 with Mr. Garner running. 10E, consider authorizing completion of fire station number 3 pre-construction services design documents.
My night. Feel like the opening and closing act here. So thank you for your time at 6 o'clock tonight to talk about the Station 3 project. We're quite proud of where we've come to this point, despite some realignments and rethinking. Travis and I have been sharing our numbers. The memo that you have in your packet was written a few days ago, and Travis was cleaning up numbers until this afternoon. We would ask that council approve $621,493 to take the Station 3 schematic design to permit-ready plans per the cost estimate that Samet has provided this evening. In full transparency, and I know Mr. Tufano will appreciate this, there are fees that will have to be paid that we know nothing about yet. Water meter tap and impact fees. We don't know what those numbers are. We don't know what NCDOT may or may not make us do in regards to Highway 51, get our driveway permit. But at this point, to get us to permit-ready plans and a guaranteed maximum price, we need to approve a budget amendment for $621,493.
Rob, can you clarify since that is not within the packet? So we have 578,617, which is the
Better vote quick. It's going up.
the pre-negotiated pre-construction price, and that's what
Travis,
we have
don't
in
be-
writing. So, and that's what we have a budget amendment prepared for.
We added the cost of permitting to that. And so I think that the reconciliation is the addition of the permit cost to that value.
Okay, so what I would recommend tonight is that the board continue with the prepared information. And then if that is approved, we can raise second budget amendment for that remaining amount in the future.
Mr. Tufano.
I am going to have to ask some very questions here. So we've already gone to 7.8 million. I understand that people at halftime gave me their assurances that they felt comfortable to stay at that point. I don't have that same level of comfort. So let's say that this time in October, whatever, we have additional costs. So the difficult questions I want to ask and that have not been considered is there a point that we say we're just not going to do this? And if so, what is that point? Second question is, how much of these increases are going to have to reflect in property tax increases?
So to answer your first question, I believe Chief Kinneberg has done a great job over the last, gosh, how long have you been here?
6 years.
6 years in working to demonstrate the need for the station for appropriate coverage in our community. So when this conversation started years ago, I think that original estimate, I think the first number we saw might have been in the twos, where we thought we would be able to deliver a station for that amount. But regardless of the cost of the station, I believe that the need for the station is well justified. When we started this entire process, ARPA didn't exist. We thought we would be paying cash or taking on debt for this station. And so we want a station that meets the needs of the community, that meets the needs of the department. And I do believe that what has been designed or is in the process of being designed does a good job of being able to be a multi-decade facility that is not overdone, but is something that can be proud of, that fits the aesthetic and is respectful to the context of the neighborhood, and is something that will continue to serve the community for, we're hoping, at least 75 years. So when we started this process, as I said, we did not know that we would have the ARPA dollars at our disposal for this. So in many ways, that has been tremendously relieving as far as the financial pressure that we would be under to deliver this facility were it not for those available funds. I will share in your disappointments at the escalation costs, and it was something that we very much thought would be able to fit in with the remaining unallocated ARPA dollars. That as we have continued through this process, that has just turned out to not be reality. We have seen SAMET work very hard over the last number of weeks to find reasonable measures within their proposal to be able to take out some of the costs. And I do believe that they are going to continue to look for ways to do that. But we're also trying to strike the balance of not reducing the quality to the extent that it is no longer a 75-year building. And that's really the tightrope that we are attempting to walk in this. So we understand that we cannot lock into a construction cost today. I wish we could, but we're just not there with being ready in this design process to get there. But at no point do I think that, certainly it's the will of the board, but from this chair at least, I don't think that there's ever a time where we would say, we're just not going to have a fire station. So I believe that we have to be able to deliver something. And we do believe that the community room aspects of this are an important component, not just for the community, that's certainly vital, but the ability to have the redundancy of service and the redundancy of facilities that Chief talked about. Whether it is continuing with SAMET and ADW, or if the board wanted to go in a different direction, that's certainly the will of this board. But we do believe that we need to get to a construction ready phase so that this board could then decide we do need to wait, but I don't know that the cost is going to go down. If anything, it will probably go up. So respectfully, I don't know that waiting is going to get us the best results, or if we're just going to end up with larger costs down the road. We do have still the ability to pay for a significant amount of this project with ARPA dollars. We would assess whether or not there's sufficient fund balance, or if we would be looking at a small loan to cover the balance of it. But we do think that ARPA remains available to cover at least the vast majority of the cost as we know it today.
So it's your opinion, regardless of cost escalations and regardless of what the total outfitting is going to be, that there are other ways to fund it without tax increases?
I did not say that. So if we end up having to take out a loan to cover the cost of it, obviously we have to make those debt service payments. The idea would be to use as much of ARPA as is possible. If the board wanted to use every remaining ARPA dollar for this, that would certainly be the will of the board. But there are a number of other projects that we were hoping might be able to come from those funds. So it's something that we can talk about at the planning conference, since we're not at a point to actually execute on the construction at this point in time. But it may be better served to use a large chunk of the ARPA funds, but not all of them, towards this project, fund a few smaller things, and then take out a construction loan or a single loan on this project, since that is a very easy project to finance, to get financing for, because it is real property. But certainly it's the will of the board how you want to slice a dice and get us to a completed project. But if there is debt service, then that would have to be absorbed. You know, a $1 million loan spread out over 10 years, $2,500, $30,000 a year. So that would be minimal. But I couldn't sit here and tell you today that that could be absorbed, because I just don't know what natural growth would do.
So that was the segue. My next question was, at the planning conference, we will have sufficient information to determine whether or not the tax increase will be necessary to fund this fire.
No, that would be, you would have the opportunity to know based on the cost that we have today, and then what our ARPA balance is, what the other projects are. We would be looking for direction from the board regarding how you want to proceed. But until we actually have a contracted cost from SAMET or whoever ends up bringing there, it would be too preliminary to lock that down. And we won't have that number in April. We will have what we have today.
And upfitting costs will not be available.
No, we've been working on an estimate for the FF&E of approximately $200,000 has been the work.
But I mean, including hiring staff and
Oh,
training.
we will have those numbers. We will
Yes.
have staff numbers at the conference. We do have that.
Thank you. That's all.
Yeah, real quick, what is the balance of ARPA?
So as of today, we had a remaining funds of $7,209,118.08. That has not been earmarked, encumbered, or expended. And then we have an additional likely $463,002.74 in premium pay that will not be utilized because of the pay plan that was approved. The 463,000 is kind of a swing number to make sure that we have the funds to get through this existing budget year that we talked about when we went through the pay plan increase. So at minimum, we're at 7.2.
Mr. Whitley.
Okay, so out of the 7 million, what did you set aside for the fire station?
We had been working on the premise that we would be able to deliver the fire station for no more than 6.5 million. So we are obviously a bit above that, thinking that we're at 7.8 plus FF&E, so we're probably closer to 8 million on the project, but we thought we were closer to 6.5.
Okay, so I don't want everything on fire station 3, but we started this and I was one pushing it through that. And I remember when we started off, before we had ARPA, we were gonna have to put the whole thing on sale. So, we've got some money from ARPA that's gonna help us with that. But at the same time, we can still take some money and finish it. Don't use it all, 7 million all in the fire station, because the number's going to go. I mean, it's just time we live in. It's just cost of living in what markets as. At some point, citizens are going to be affected a little bit. But at the same time, this station is much needed for the northern part of the community, John and me. That's why I pushed it, because I've had a couple medical issues that I had to call. We didn't have nothing in our area up there on that end. And I know it's much needed. And I'm speaking to Chief. Great community center is much needed as well for that area as well too. So we're gonna have to be used. It's not gonna be just in there idle. But I'm in agreement. We have to have this station. We got a break. We got free money. Put someone on that, but then you got to put some skin in the game. I'm all in favor of putting some skin in the game, because before we had our money, we were going to put all of the skin in the game, the whole body. So let's do what we can, spend it all now. Assuming 1.5 million for affordable homes is already out.
That is the earmark, so that is not counted.
So the money that we've already paid partially for the police department, getting that 400 back because of the reclassification. Is that what I'm hearing? You said the 400 some dollars.
The 400,000 is a potential. We'll know as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year, as we make sure that we have sufficient funds.
So my thinking is that let's use some ARPA fund. Don't spend it all, because it might be something else that can help somebody else. Because the ARPA fund money was really designed to help the community, poor communities during time when we had COVID. And so it's a win-win. We were able to get this and use some of it so it can help, because this is so much needed for the community, for the town, to address everything. But if you have to get a loan or take out a little loan to complete it, to make it right, this is a good design.
I've looked at it pretty decent, and I heard the chief talking about the ECC moving over there. It's just technology is gone out of sight. I mean, it's unreal to keep the fire EMS and all of those up to date to be able to meet the needs of people in the northern part of Matthews. So in our area, that's
Mr. Varner.
Becky, when do those funds disappear?
Talking about the ARPA funds. So if you'll recall, we did the legal supplanting that allowed us to report to the federal government the use of those funds as salary and wages for our first responders and other qualifying positions, which then allowed us to put them into our general fund. And so all of the federal strings, that's restricted timeline, all of those have been lifted. And so everything's sitting in our general fund balance for any legal purpose that we can use funds for under state law. So all of those restrictions are lifted. So it could sit there forever. We would have to explain to our citizens why, but otherwise we slowly.
Member Tim.
So we've got a few comments. First, this money that they're asking for, the two different figures that asked for, I think that's 621. Has that been in the ARPA funds that are pulled out of what number you just gave us, or would that come out of that sum?
That would come out of the 7.2, but it is part of their it is part of their 7.8.
And then I'm going to express my extreme frustration that we got the packet on Wednesday and said 578, and you give us a packet an hour before a meeting. It's a 621. It's a $50,000 increase. So I'm with town manager, which said 578. That's, and Mr. Urban has said this many times. The last minute things that get to us. That this should have. Our packet was Wednesday. We were prepared for 578, $621,000. It's a lot of money. So just wanted to express my extreme frustration with that last minute.
Chief, I'd like to ask a brutally frank question. What is your confidence with Salmon moving forward, and would the town be well served to go with somebody else? What is your confidence level with this group?
Yes, we had some very blunt conversations, but I am convinced that Samet can deliver this project. They can also deliver the added value that we selected Samet for. 3 weeks ago, I sat in here with 19 SWMBE contractors that are interested in doing work here in the town of Matthews. The other night, Michael and I sat online with, I think it was 21 WMBE contractors. We have interest in the community, not necessarily just Matthews, but Union County, Mecklenburg County contractors are interested in this job, and they're interested in doing business with Matthews. The Procore software that Sam uses and allows Travis, sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, for the last minute, but we wanted to give you the absolute best number we could. That allows Travis to track costs and alternatives as we get into the actual DD phase of this and determine that one material over the other is more cost effective. The management software that will be used to manage this project will allow each one of you to log in and see what today's schedule is at the fire station and when it's going to be completed. So I think the added value really comes in to actually see two projects that bid out in January. And I'm very familiar with the Station 45 project and the glut that is Charlotte. To see the Holly Springs station come in about $25 a square foot more was reassuring that we were not in the wrong place. We can fire Samet and find somebody else, but we'd be starting over. And to the need for the fire station, I'm glad that you understand it. We bought property next to Purser Halsey Park more than 12 years ago to build a fire station. We've done nothing. We bought more land across the street because we couldn't get all this on 2.5 acres. We must tackle this, or we will be back in the volunteer throes because 1/3 of our coverage is still provided by volunteers out of Idlewild. We've had very frank conversations with them, and yes, it hurts. I've been part of that. But they understand the greater good for the town of Matthews, and we will make a place for them in our plan. So I'm fully confident that Samet can deliver this product.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
I would like to challenge what you made about the software. It was one of the reasons we went with them, but wasn't that software to prevent the giant hike in price and cost like we've seen, right? I mean, I think that's my point. I think that's maybe what the mayor is getting to is one of the main reasons we chose Salmon is for that software. So we would have these surprises, if you will, and lo and behold, there it is. It's like,
Well, I think, again, I go back to, there was not another project to gauge it against. Most of the projects we were gauging against were bid out several years ago. A lot of contractors have gone bankrupt on contracts, commitments that they had to meet. If you ride up and down South End, you will see Samet banners flying everywhere. They must be doing something right.
Have any further questions, comments, or motions? Commissioner Urban.
So I think it's ridiculous to say, yes, the board what number we want to pay, sound turned white, all sorts of problems. Let me throw a Hail Mary pass out here. So we're building a park across the street. We have bond funds for that park, and I'm sure the majority of the board is going to be supportive of that. The bond has a lot more running room, hasn't really been designed in terms of the length, breadth, and width. You're still spending the money one way or the other. But you could look at a series of advanced community rooms over there that act as event centers as well. So you could have birthday parties on top of it. I'm not saying get rid of the conference room community center completely at the fire station, but you could greatly reduce it to create the conference room / training room that she needs, but not holding 75 some odd people. And I don't know if the community room is 2,000 square feet. Is that including the conference room number? Okay, so, but anyway, I mean, because there's another fold situation is you can do the Hail Mary pass, resize what you have at the fire station to get cheap buy in terms of the conference training. The way it's designed to gate land, you could dot in future expansion and get it all back down the road, but 9 times out of 10, professionally, I hear that and it never happens. But if it meant substantially taking the numbers down, when you got the board to a comfort level where it's palatable, and immediately pivot to coordinating team and said, you need to be looking at community functions in the park. That's what you do. But you're not going to get rid of the total dollars in the end game, because somewhere along the line, there needs to be community functions someplace on that side of town.
My initial response would just be a clarification that the seated arrangement of that community room with a small table in front are only about 24. So it's not 75 seated, it's occupancy of 75. So if it is, so the 75 is standing room. So when you look at being able to utilize that existing square footage for training, or for an EOC type configuration, it's really not very big. You're going to quickly be at max capacity if you've got a situation where you're looking for people to have a table in front of them. So I'm not sure that scaling it down much further than that would really too much of a usable space for some of the non-community type functions that we were looking at having.
Well, then we shouldn't have never classified it as a community space. It should have been training room. And it should be the program station.
Well, and I think the thought is, a small child's birthday party or, euchre, the local euchre club or something like that might still certainly have the ability to use it, but that's actually not a terribly large room.
But if the conference room is combined with community, Travis is checking it right now. You have word on that?
The totals between the two rooms is about 11,000 square feet. 1,100 square feet.
Mr. Whitman?
Yeah, I'll push back, John. I don't want to reduce nothing. And I'll tell you why. Because when we first talked about this, we were trying to get something for the area for this sort of dual process for police and for training. And then the conference room and then the community room, two different things for different areas. And I think all of us know what conference room do, like the staff will do that meeting something over there. But I mean, we're looking at, I'm looking at two different things. I'm looking at free money, and I'm looking at us putting some money in the game. Now, all is free money. You can say what you want to. And if we didn't have it, we would have to put the whole bill. Now, we don't have to put the whole bill for it. We started out, I think, when I started, it was somewhere around $4 million. And we know what every day go by. And John, you know this better than anybody else. I know, you
Yeah,
know.
I'm
but
for the project.
I know you are.
The rest of the board looks pretty ghostish, they pretty pale.
I mean, you know,
Concerned.
everybody else is ghost this when you're feeling something. Now, I'm telling you, from one night to the next day, numbers is changing. And it's a good looking building. It's a good for that area. If we're gonna do Fire Station 3, which is gonna get it from downtown out to where we can have some privacy and being able to still meet their need of not only on Matthews, but on that end of Mid Hill as well too. But this, we're just gonna have to bite the bullet. We got half up, we can get half up free or a little over half and then borrow the other money and make it nice. If we delay, if we cut back anything we do, it's gonna cost us more the next day, tomorrow, next year. I know what I'm talking about, and I believe in going forward. Let's push it. Let's get what they need, what they need. Chief Advisor, make something really nice. Believe in Matthews. And I heard that more than that. I can count on my Matthews. Let's make this a signature Matthews Fire Station. I mean, you and Gina live over there. Anybody gonna need to call somebody, they coming from Fire Station 3. And I'm the closest one. I want to get there quick, within a minute.
That's my big argument, he's too close.
Come back your home.
I do just want to offer up to the board that Rob and I do see this as a good interim step in moving forward with the completion of the design documents with Salmon and ADW. This provides an opportunity to get us to a point of being ready for construction, but then the board will certainly have the opportunity to have additional conversations before making that commitment. And so this moving forward tonight, if the board is otherwise comfortable, does not lock us into construction. It simply moves us forward to get to a design, or excuse me, a construction ready phase with those design documents in hand. So if the board at that point in time decided that they wanted to wait for some reason, those plans will sit. We own the property. It's not going anywhere. And at some point in time, or a future board wanted to move forward, be ready to do that at this time. So I do just want to make sure that the board understands what the commitment is tonight. That it is not needing to actually move forward with agreeing to construction.
Mr. Gardner.
I am supportive of moving forward with the construction documents. And I think that Commissioner Urban, you, as well as anybody knows that a building is not just a building, but it is a function of. And by eliminating the community room, you eliminate a lot of that interaction with people who live around it. The number of birthday parties I've been to at fire stations and how formative that is for children is pretty amazing. It's not the same as having a park structure. It brings interaction and it brings people over to the fire station. And it's also a source of pride for people who live around it and a source of pride for the entire community. So, if we can whittle it back down and nickel and dime our way, but what does that do for the function of the building and the way that it interacts with our community?
Got a motion? Commissioner Devon.
I just want to make clear on the recommendation. These are, this is from the money that we put from ARPA into the general fund.
That's
Correct?
correct.
Okay, thank
You need six, only one vacancy, I think you need to five.
I am comfortable asking the board to only take action on the 578,617 as was prepared for tonight at your agenda packet. Rob and I can get together with Sam and determine in writing what those additional costs are that exceeded that previous number. And if it's appropriate to bring back an additional fund balance appropriation request and budget amendment, we'll do that at a future meeting.
I like to make the motion to double our town manager into the contract. Summit, okay, here, Summit construction, completion of remaining pre-construction services, fire station 3 for the amount of $578,617. Associated budget amendment, same offer.
Second.
Commissioner Gardner, second. So, you know, the same time. Before we take the final vote, I just want to say that my ultimate heartburn is just seeing massive escalation. And we'll have to have another conversation if you come back and it's going to be 8.6 or $9 million to build it, because we just can't go there. We don't have unlimited funds. Can't just write a blank check forever, even though we all recognize the great need for another fire station. There's got to be some point that we can't continue escalating off the charts. This was really off the charts. I mean, I think I did my imitation of Fred Sanford holding his heart when you don't know what the number was. So I really had a heart attack. So I can't tolerate that. Any further questions, comments? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? 6-1 with Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, council.
Thank you. Move on with the mayor's report. I've got a couple items tonight. First, before for our pre-meeting tonight, I had a pre-meeting with Hindu Yamspak Sane USA group, a group of Hindu folks led by area. And a very interesting meeting because they came before me as mayor and said, what can we do to help the town? So they're very interested in seeking volunteer opportunities for our food collections, cleaning up our streets and trails, all kinds of things. It's really refreshing to see a group come forward and volunteer to, how can we help you? Normally people come to us with their handout. These folks came carrying gifts, so really nice. I do have a couple of their annual reports if you want to take a look at them. But this group has basically told us, let us know what the town needs, and we will be glad to help you. That's very, very refreshing and nice. And so we talked to Corey King, and we're going to get him in touch with Leanne and some other folks to see what we can move forward. I'd also like to read a prepared statement tonight. And let it stand on its own. I welcome, value, and depend on citizen participation and input related to all matters that come before the Matthews Town Board of Commissioners, including rezoning petitions. I understand there are some citizens and neighbors in our community who did not support the Santa Matthews development rezoning, and despite having ample opportunity to voice their opposition to this project, they continue to feel as though they were not adequately heard on this issue. This belief seems to have culminated in a letter from the Duke University School of Law's First Amendment Clinic that purports to speak on behalf of some of these citizens. Today, I hope to convey my understanding of the Duke Clinic's opinion, let you know that I do not agree with it in any way, shape, or form. The Duke Clinic's letter implies that the town may have violated constitutional rights by asking people to speak only one time at a joint public hearing on the Santa Matthews development. I'm informed by the town's legal counsel that there is no foundation in North Carolina law or in federal law from which to argue what the Duke Clinic is arguing, that the town violated a right that asks the citizens to refrain from speaking more than once during a single public hearing. It was continued over multiple meetings. If the Duke Clinic is correct, it would mean that local governments could not establish reasonable practices to govern public hearings, nor have the ability to ensure efficient or fair government. I have been advised this is not what the law requires. Instead, local governments are expressly granted the authority to utilize practices that ensure everyone is heard. That's how the town of Matthews has consistently conducted business, including in this case. The fact is that interested citizens were not prevented from speaking more than once. The town allowed those who had already spoken during the public hearing on this issue to speak again during open public comment periods that are held at all of our meetings. And they did, in some instances, on numerous occasions. In addition to having the opportunity to speak during the public hearing and to speak a number of times during the open public comment periods, citizens in attendance at the meetings who had already spoken or those who might otherwise be interested in expressing their opinion were also encouraged to email the town to provide additional feedback. Interested citizens also had the open opportunity to email, text, call, or write to board members an unlimited number of times. Hundreds of citizens on both sides of this issue chose to make contact with town board members via one or more of these means, and email archives alone demonstrate the enormous amount of time and energy spent responding to questions, tracking down information, and acknowledging the positions expressed by members of our community. While I respect the role of Duke Clinic, the role it plays in attempting to advocate for perceived or actual violations of the First Amendment, I'm disappointed they chose to send me a letter expressing concern with Matthew's customs and processes without first vetting the information they received. Had they made contact with our town attorney, town staff, or me prior to sending their letter, I'm confident their numerous misunderstandings on this issue could have been avoided. Instead, I want to assure our citizens and neighbors that their right to participate and be heard on all matters of town business, including rezoning petitions, remains in full effect. While I understand some citizens may disagree with certain decisions made by the town board, public input is a vital component of our decision-making process and is something that the town of Matthews will always encourage and support. Thank you. Okay, we'll move into the next item, town attorney's report. No report, man. Town manager.
No.
Okay, we need to enter into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143/31811A4 to consider economic development. Now call for a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
This will include myself, the Board of Commissioners, town attorney, town manager, assistant town manager, planning director, and town clerk.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem McCool, second by Commissioner Carter. All in favor?